All right. Well, thanks, Jane, and to Shannon, and to the folks at Deed and our partners that are working with our veterans across the state. Uh, so today we're going to kind of do an overview of registered apprenticeship based on the list of attendees that I had forwarded to me. I saw some familiar names on there, so some organizations and businesses that have adopted the registered apprenticeship model into their workforce. So I might be chiming in to see if any of those folks are on and if they have any information they'd like to share or to share some of their experiences with utilizing the registered apprenticeship model in their workforce. So again, my name is Jeremy Parker. I'm a senior field rep with the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industries Division of Registered Apprenticeship. Just a little overview of kind of the agenda and some of the topics that I'll hit on today. We'll talk a little bit about the Department of Labor and Industries outreach, an overview of what registered apprenticeship is and how it can be utilized in a employment setting or in your workplace. I'll talk about one of the funding opportunities that we currently have available to assist with the development of registered apprenticeship programs. I'll talk a little bit about some of the partnerships we have, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So just briefly before we get started, we always like to do a little bit of an overview of our department. So the Department of Labor and Industry, our mission is to ensure Minnesota's work and living environments are equitable, healthy, and safe. Our vision is to be a trusted resource, service provider, and an impartial regulator. So some of the services and units within the Department of Labor and Industry are OSHA, construction codes and licensing, workers' compensation, labor standards, pipeline dual training, and then registered apprenticeship. So before we get really too far into the presentation, I always like to kind of set the tone and really define what registered apprenticeship is. So the term apprentice and apprenticeship are used pretty fast and loose in conversations today. From our perspective as the Department of Labor and Industry, I will speak only to registered apprenticeships. So registered apprenticeships are a very defined, structured form of developing your workforce. They're not internships. They're not training programs per se. They're very defined and set, as we will get into as we go through this. So when I speak to apprenticeship or apprentices, that's specifically related to a registered apprenticeship program that's either been recognized and registered in the state of Minnesota or if United States Department of Labor, and an apprentice would be an actual registered apprentice. So some myths and facts, pardon me for a second. So there's a lot of myths and facts and questions about what registered apprenticeship is. So kind of to piggyback off of what I just mentioned, some of the common questions we get asked are, registered apprenticeship programs are only in Minnesota's metropolitan areas, like the Twin Cities or Duluth. The fact of that is that is not true. There are registered apprenticeship programs operating throughout the entire state, from our large metropolitan communities out to our rural communities, from the northern border to the southern border and east and west. So this workforce development model is utilized throughout the entire state. The registered apprenticeship programs are only in the building and construction trades. The building and construction trades have really been the industry that has fully embraced and fully developed the registered apprenticeship model, going back all the way to the 1930s with the founding of the National Apprenticeship Act and then the Apprenticeship Act of Minnesota. They were really instrumental in kind of the development of this workforce development model in implementing it. But the reality of it is we have registered apprenticeship programs in numerous industries throughout Minnesota. Some of those other industries that have really embraced this model include the utility industry, primarily in the electrical utilities, manufacturing, healthcare, agriculture, information technology, and transportation as well. And we'll dig into how registered apprenticeship is being utilized in each of those industries a little bit later on here. Another myth is that registered apprenticeship programs are only for large companies. The truth is, employers large and small sponsor registered apprenticeship programs throughout the state of Minnesota. And these programs are developed by these employers or these employer groups to meet the needs of that employer as they develop their workforce. So we have some apprenticeship programs, like some of our building trade programs. They may have 1,000, 2,000 apprentices, but we also have some smaller employers, particularly like in the manufacturing industry, where they may only have 1, 2 apprentices on their staff at any point in time. So really the registered apprenticeship model can be adapted and utilized to meet the needs of any size employer. Another common myth or question we get asked a lot is apprentices in these registered apprenticeship programs will get the training and experience from an employer and then leave and take their talents and knowledge elsewhere. What we found, though, is registered apprenticeship programs have proven to help reduce turnover and increase employee productivity. So what we found is generally what will, an individual that is in a registered apprenticeship program will actually stick with that employer even after completing their program. And a lot of it comes down to that the employer has developed a repertoire with their apprentices, that they're really bought into the development of these individuals and the success of these individuals that are going through one of these programs. Another myth is that all registered apprenticeship programs involve unions. In the building and construction trades, the labor unions have really taken this model and made it their own, and have very successfully utilized it. But the reality of it is that registered apprenticeship programs are not cornered by the labor unions. So especially once we start looking into some of the other industries out there, manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, information technology, the registered apprenticeship model is used by a wide variety of employers, whether they have a labor agreement or they don't have a labor agreement in place. So what would be some of the benefits of an employer to consider adopting and utilizing the registered apprenticeship model in their workplace? For the employers, or what we'll refer to as sponsors, it's a way for them to help build and shape their own workforce to meet the needs of that workplace. It helps to create new skilled worker pipeline. So as our older workers have slowly progressed out of the workplace and continue to progress out of the workplace into retirement, registered apprenticeship really creates a pipeline to pass that knowledge and experience from those experienced workers into the new individuals coming into that workplace. And it's in a way that's very standardized and very consistent as well. The workers, the employees, the apprentices produce while they train. So they actually are going to start working from day one. So not only are they going to get trained, but they're also working and being productive for the employer as well. It improves productivity. Again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is it shows a way that the employers are really bought into the development of their apprentices or their employees. Reduce employee turnover. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We tend to see that those that enter into a registered apprenticeship program tend to stay through the term of their apprenticeship program and also stay with that employer. Again, it's a way to retain and transfer organizational knowledge. And there are incentives available as well to employers for hiring veterans. And we will talk a little bit more about some of the benefits that are available to veterans as they enter into a registered apprenticeship program here before we wrap the presentation. And I also have a handout that's available on our website that that'll be made available to all of you in attendance as well, that explains how veterans can utilize their GI Bill benefits as they enter into a registered apprenticeship program. So some of the benefits for the workers or the apprentices is one of the key requirements of a registered apprenticeship program is that they are employed and on a payroll earning a paycheck. The apprentices will also receive comprehensive job training. There are requirements to how they progress learning their job and learning the tasks required of that job while they're in their program. We'll discuss that in a minute as well. Since we're the Department of Labor and Industry, which houses OSHA, the safety of apprentices and all workers in Minnesota is one of our main charges. So there are some requirements regarding safety training to ensure that apprentices are not only learning their job in a safe manner, but they're working in a manner and getting instruction as to how to protect themselves while they're at their job so that they can go home at the end of the day. There are set wage increases that go along with the progression as an apprentice progresses through their apprenticeship program as well, which is always kind of a nice thing. You know, someone might be having a rough week, but they know if they stick this out for a few more weeks or maybe another month, maybe they have a nice little pay bump coming their way, which will kind of help ease things out a little bit. Allows them to master in-demand skills. At the conclusion of their apprenticeship program, all apprentices will receive a nationally recognized credential. We'll go into that a little bit more in the next slide or two. And again, we mentioned it a moment ago, but apprentices in a registered apprenticeship program are eligible to access their benefits through the GI Bill as well. And then some of the benefits just for the state as a whole is that registered apprenticeship is a pathway to the middle class. Most of the opportunities and occupations and industries where we find registered apprenticeship in are high growth industries that pay family sustaining wages. The state also, just in general through the registered apprenticeship model, it allows our workers to receive quality training and be competent workers in those industries. Again, we mentioned the safety piece again. It's just another way that we ensure our workers are working in a safe work setting and that they're able to go home to their families or whoever it is that they want to see, or even just getting home at the end of the day in one piece. And all of this together helps create a vibrant economy for the entire state. So Jane, at this time, are there any questions or shall I progress ahead?
I don't see any questions in the chat box so far, so go ahead.
All right. So if you do have any questions as we go through this, feel free to let Jane know, and I'd be more than happy to address them as we go through so that they're all fresh in our minds. So what is a registered apprenticeship? So there are a set of statutes and regulations, both state and federal, that oversee what is required of a registered apprenticeship program. So kind of the main components of a registered apprenticeship program are one, employment. So an apprentice must be employed by either the employer that has a registered apprenticeship program or a sponsoring group. And that could be a labor union, it could be a trade association as well. But there has to be an employment piece to the registered apprenticeship program. So again, that means these are individuals that are on a payroll paying taxes. So no 1099ing, no piecemeal work, no commission pay. It is a straight hourly wage. So they have to be employed and meet all the requirements set forth in employment law. There has to be an on-the-job training component. So an apprentice must work under the supervision of a qualified, competent person, otherwise sometimes referred to as a journey worker. So there has to be supervision while they're on the job. There are ratio requirements that state how many apprentices can be on a job site and how many qualified, competent journey workers also are on that job site. And that's to just ensure that everyone's being supervised and learning their craft and their trade in a safe manner as well. The on-the-job training piece for a registered apprenticeship program requires that there be a minimum of 2,000 hours of on-the-job training per occupation per the apprentice. Most registered apprenticeship programs in the state of Minnesota are anywhere from 2,000 hours to 10,000 hours. It could be more than 10,000, but it can never be less than 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. That training also would need to be documented as well as part of the program. There's a related instruction piece. So this is where that phrasing that you may have heard regarding registered apprenticeship as being an earn while you learn model. So not only is an apprentice going and learning the ins and outs of their trade, craft, or occupation under the supervision of a competent individual, they will also be receiving a minimum of 144 hours of related technical instruction. That technical instruction needs to be related to the occupation that the individual is learning. And that related instruction could come from multiple avenues. It could be provided by one of our state community colleges. It could be provided by a accredited third party via an online correspondence course or some sort of an online curriculum. Or it could be developed in-house by the employer. It would just need to be submitted to the department for review. So there is some flexibility built into this, but again, it has to be a minimum of 144 hours of related instruction each year of the program. The next component is wages. So all apprenticeship programs have to have a defined, structured, progressive wage scale put in place. So an apprentice coming into an apprenticeship program, fresh, no experience, would be entering into that job at a percentage of the journey worker rate. So let's say, just case in point, a new apprentice would come in making 50% of the journey worker rate. And then dependent upon how that program is set up, those wages will increase with either the attainment of a set amount of on-the-job training hours. It could be increased due to the attainment of a competency, or it could be a combination of time in the program and competencies obtained. But that wage scale would be set, and those apprentices will know how their wages will increase and what will trigger those wage increases as well. There's a requirement for safety training that kind of plays into our related technical instruction piece as well. So an apprentice will need to receive a minimum of 50 hours of safety training that's related to their occupation, trade, or craft over the term of their apprenticeship program. For most employers, that's a pretty easy requirement to meet, especially nowadays. As an apprentice progresses through and completes an apprenticeship program, they will receive a certification from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry acknowledging that this person has completed a registered apprenticeship program and has achieved the status of a journey worker. In Minnesota, we are able to operate our registered apprenticeship programs under the guidance and the authority of the United States Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship. So some states throughout the country, their registered apprenticeship programs are overseen by the United States Department of Labor. Here in Minnesota, the feds have allowed us to operate our apprenticeship programs within the borders of the state. So these credentials that the individual receives, their notice of becoming a journey worker, those credentials are recognized across the country. So an individual that is in, let's say, a carpentry program in Minnesota will receive almost identical training, on-the-job training experience, and receive similar education as someone in a registered carpentry program in Ohio. So really one of the nice things, one of the nice benefits of a registered apprenticeship model is it really creates a consistency in a standardized training process for workers in a particular industry, occupation, trade, or craft. So it really does help standardize these occupations so that if you have a registered apprenticeship program and you hire somebody that might be in their second year of a fourth year program from another state, you'll have a pretty good idea as to what their knowledge level is, their experience level is, where you can kind of plug them right into your program here and have a very good idea as to what their knowledge and skill base is. It also is great for hiring people that have completed a registered apprenticeship program. You'll know pretty much exactly what experience and education these folks have had when you arrive. Case in point would be a good case in point for Minnesota is with our electrical utility workers. So power line workers, those that work for small public powers, town power and lights, those that work for the rural electric cooperatives, and then those that even work for the large for-profit energy providers like Minnesota Power or Xcel Energy. Any of those folks that are power line workers in any of those three settings in Minnesota are receiving almost identical training regarding their on-the-job training out in the field and their related technical instruction. So it's really helped to standardize that industry and that occupation throughout the state, which is a nice benefit of utilizing the registered apprenticeship model. So if an employer would be interested in creating a registered apprenticeship program, the process usually works like this. One, reach out to us and we will have an initial discussion. Usually those can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much questions or what's going on. So we'll try to identify what the actual occupation that you'd like to apprentice is. We can review to see if there's already an existing program in Minnesota that we can use as a template to help build out your program. If there isn't a program for that occupation in Minnesota, we can reach out to our friends at the United States Department of Labor, and they can let us know if there's a similar apprenticeship program for an occupation already being utilized somewhere in the United States, and provide us with some of the framework of that program that, again, we can use as a template to help build out your program. As we do that, identify the occupation, identify if there's already an existing program. Then we can begin looking at things such as reviewing the wages that are to be paid to the apprentice, reviewing that wage scale, reviewing your safety training curriculum, reviewing the on-the-job training schedule. So as each of these occupations are broken down into a variety of work skills that an apprentice would need to master, we can review that, and then review the related technical instruction to ensure that it meets all of the requirements as outlined in state apprenticeship law and federal apprenticeship codes and regulations.
Excuse me, Jeremy, there are a couple questions in the chat box.
Sure. I
Okay.
can't see the chat box, Jane, so fire away, please.
Okay. Barry commented that he knows an apprentice who completed a power line worker program and got a job offer starting at $41 an hour.
Okay.
Okay, and then we also provided, for more information, we provided your email address. And then there's another question here that says, this is very good news. No, it's excellent news. So just a couple of comments.
Yeah. So, and again, we kind of stressed, like I kind of mentioned, someone mentioned about power line workers, $41 an hour. A lot of these occupations that tend to be apprenticeable, or the employers are utilizing these registered apprenticeship programs, and the occupations are often high demand occupations. When we start talking about building and construction trades, we're talking like electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, low voltage electrical electricians. So these are industries and occupations that we've seen a lot of movement of people out of the workforce due to retirement, and that we're trying to replace. And just with the demand in, for projects and building new roadways and building apartment buildings and housing units. These are occupations where there's a lot of opportunity, and with that opportunity come family sustaining high wage jobs. So to kind of back up, so as we kind of go through and review what and how you are viewing your program working, we'll review all of that to ensure that it meets all statutory and regulation requirements. Then at that point, we will work, one of our staff will work with the employers or the employer group to draft what are known as standards of apprenticeship. Those basically become the operating agreement between the employer, the employer group, the Department of Labor and Industry, and the apprentices. So that outlines everything that is required in that program, defines the occupation, how many hours of related technical instruction per year, what the wage scale is, and also outlines various other components of a registered apprenticeship program that are required under state and federal statute. Once that's filled out, the standards of apprenticeship are reviewed. Those get submitted to the Department of Labor and Industry, to the Director of Labor Standards and Apprenticeship for approval. Upon approval, the program has 30 days to launch. And by that, we mean indenture or register an apprentice with the Department of Labor and Industry. Once that's done, once that first apprentice is in, we'll do scheduled check-ins and technical assistant visits with the new apprenticeship program. Usually those are at 30, 60, 90, and 100 days. And those are just check-ins to ensure that things are going smoothly, answer any of those administrative questions that might come up, and to just be a resource to help employers ensure that their apprenticeship programs are going to be successful. And then, so once those programs are up and running, that really becomes a way to expand the hiring pipeline for those employers. So even us as an agency, we will work with the employers or employer groups that come on board with registered apprenticeship on promoting opportunities at your place of employment. So if you're looking to bring on some apprentices or you have some opportunities, we can help promote those opportunities through our social media feeds, through our quarterly newsletter, through our website. We also host a lot of events throughout the year for our registered apprenticeship programs to help connect them to community-based organizations in their area, to local high schools, to local school districts, faith-based groups, interested stakeholders in your area. So we like to try to create those channels and those pipelines between the employers that have a registered apprenticeship program and to the stakeholders that are serving the citizenry in their area as well, to help make those connections to create those pipelines to help fill needs as they come up. And we've been real successful by doing webinars, panel discussions, even hosting tours for high school groups to view and tour employers' places of work, or if they have a training center or whatnot. So we really like to work on helping to create those meaningful connections to ensure that those that utilize and adopt this method are able to connect and pipeline folks that are interested in learning these trades and occupations to them.
Okay, Jeremy, there is one
Yeah.
more question in the chat box. Jeff is wondering how these apprentices are found.
Sure. So really it's an employment training piece. So, the apprentices are going to be found via your usual recruitment practices for your place of work. So through advertising, whether it's through the minnesotaworks.net website that's hosted by our friends at Deed, through just normal recruitment efforts, going to job fairs in high schools, or like I said, as an employer comes on and registers a program, working with the staff here at Apprenticeship Minnesota to help connect to some of those other agencies, groups that can help direct people to you as well. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but really it would be finding, the apprentices will find their way to these employers through traditional hiring methods as well. So just a little bit to show kind of some of the trends of registered apprenticeship participation over the years. This chart here kind of shows some of the progress we've made with ensuring that registered apprenticeship opportunities are available to all communities and demographics throughout the state. This year with COVID, our numbers have dipped a little bit, just like any other, all employment across the board was impacted by the pandemic. Registered apprenticeship programs were no different. But one piece that we really like to highlight is that the participation of people of color, women, and veterans in registered apprenticeship over the last 10 years has doubled. So if you were to look from 2010 on this chart up to 2020, you can see that the participation rates for these populations has increased. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to our agency and our apprenticeship program sponsors really being intentional on getting the word out about opportunities in registered apprenticeship to these communities. In the United States military as well, they have their own registered apprenticeship programs. So folks that are transitioning out of active duty service may already be familiar with registered apprenticeship programs, as they may have already participated in one while they were on active duty. And there are some organizations as well that do work with individuals that are getting ready to discharge out of the military to help get them prepared for a registered apprenticeship opportunity. One of them would be the Veterans in Piping program, which is run by the United Association, which is basically the pipe trades union. So they have a program to prepare active duty military that are getting ready to discharge, to help prepare them to go into a registered apprenticeship program in the pipe trade, so plumbing and pipe fitting. A little bit about where our apprenticeship programs are, based on industry sector. Go ahead, Jane.
Okay, we have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Barbara is asking, being we only have 30 days to find the right candidate for an apprenticeship, do you suggest not registering until you have the candidate when you first start the program?
Well, that's, there's a couple ways to look at that question as well. So if, let's say you are an employer and you're looking at utilizing this model, the registered apprenticeship model in-house, maybe you already have an employee that you're employing that may benefit from the experience of going through a registered apprenticeship program and getting that defined on-the-job training and that related technical instruction. You could always create and register the program with us, and then take that individual and register them as an apprentice, and you can give them advanced standing for some of their prior experience. So let's say it's a 6,000 hour program and this person has been with you for maybe 1 year and has been doing some of the work that would be required under this program. You could provide that person with 2,000 hours of experience towards their apprenticeship program. So instead of it being a full 3-year program, they could complete it in 2 years. So that's one route. If you're in the process of bringing somebody into the program or hiring, we do have programs that will go dormant from time to time as well. So if they bring somebody in that 30 days and that person were to leave and it takes 6 months to bring a program or another person in, your program does not go away. So it just kind of gets put on pause until you can bring another individual in. I don't know if that fully answered the question, but that's one way that, with that 30-day mark to get somebody registered, how that could work to meet that requirement.
Okay, Carol also noted that there's a DoD Skill Bridge.
Okay.
And Shannon wrote, if a company creates or has apprenticeships, how would they get that info out to transitioning service members? Is the Department of Labor and Industry connected to military transition assistance programs?
Yeah, so there's been some pilot programs through the feds. Minnesota was not part of that. But we do work closely with our friends at the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs as well. And they kind of play a role in how a veteran can access their GI Bill benefits when they go into a registered apprenticeship program. So they have to authorize those programs. So we do work with Department of Veterans Affairs to reach out to veterans about opportunities to get them connected with registered apprenticeship programs. There's another group that our agency works very closely with called Helmets to Hard Hats, which is an organization that works to connect veterans to opportunities in registered apprenticeship in the building and construction trades. And then too, for our employers that come on board with this, if there are opportunities to connect them to some of the other agencies that, within the state agencies and that, so Department of Veterans Affairs, or even the folks at DEED that work with our veterans, we're happy to connect our program sponsors to those individuals so that they can help create some of those pipelines to recruit veterans into their workforce.
Okay, the next question is, Mark is asking, what type of credentialing does a business need so veterans can use their GI Bill, and how hard is that process?
So speaking just specifically to registered apprenticeship, you would have to go through the whole process that I discussed a few moments ago to register your program with the Department of Labor and Industry. At that point, once the program is approved by MNDLI, that notice can also be provided to the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs so that you can get put on their approved apprenticeship program list as well.
Okay, and the last question, the process to create a registered apprentice program would require a lot of resources for a small business. Is there help or resources for help?
Yes, there are. Like I said, our staff is available to assist employers with going through and doing some of that legwork on, finding if there's already an existing program for that occupation, gathering that information. We can, like I said, we can help an employer with looking at that, an existing program and how that can be customized to meet the needs of that employer. If it's a matter of finding related technical instruction that's approved, we can be a resource to help connect you to some of those providers, whether it's one of the community colleges or an online curriculum provider. So we have a lot of resources to help a program or an interested employer go through the process to get a program registered with us. Over the years, there has been some funding opportunities available. At this moment, one of those programs is sunsetting here at the end of the month, so that funding will no longer be available. But as we progress through, I could see additional funding becoming available, whether it's through the state or through the federal government, to help increase registered apprenticeships throughout the state of Minnesota, whether it's to assist employers with developing a program, or with one of the grants I'll talk about here in later on regarding supports to those that come into a registered apprenticeship program. So for the apprentices.
No other questions at the moment.
All right. So just to kind of give folks an overview as to where opportunities in registered apprenticeship are in the state of Minnesota by industry, our utility sector is the largest, as in the amount of individual employers that are on board. So in the utility industry, we're talking Xcel Energy, our rural electric cooperatives that represent regional areas throughout the state of Minnesota, Minnesota Power up in the northeast part of the state, and then through Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association, which represents the small town, city power and light throughout the state. So a lot of our smaller rural communities. The next area that we have a big concentration in is in the building and construction trades. They actually have about 90% of the registered apprenticeship programs, and apprentices in the state of Minnesota are in the building and construction trades. So the graph is a little wonky, but we just have more active sponsors in utilities, but there's a lot more apprentices in the building and construction trades. Advanced manufacturing is another area that we've had a lot of success in bringing new employers on board to use this workforce development tool over the last 5 years. EJ Ajax in Fridley is one of kind of our employers that we bring out in to really highlight, especially their commitment to hiring veterans. We have some videos available on our website, apprenticeship.mn.gov, that highlight apprenticeship opportunities and apprenticeship programs in each of these industries. And the one for manufacturing for EJ Ajax really focuses on the efforts that they've done to bring veterans into their apprenticeship programming. Healthcare is another industry that we've seen growth in, particularly in the Twin Cities metro area and in senior care living facilities throughout the state. Transportation, Metro Transit for their bus drivers, they began utilizing the registered apprenticeship model to train and onboard their bus drivers here about 2 years ago, and it's been a very successful program for them. Agriculture is pretty wide ranging, everything from arborists to farm equipment manufacturing and maintenance. Public sector, one of our newest registered apprenticeship programs is actually the state of Minnesota's IT unit, Minute, has recently came on board with a registered apprenticeship program to assist with the onboarding of IT support folks for the state of Minnesota. And then just information technology in general is an area that we continue to try to bring more employers into. We view that as a high growth potential area for registered apprenticeship. I think right now it's been a little slow going, and that's just because this is a new thing for that industry. So we're just kind of going through some of those growing pains on developing those programs. But then again, we have, like I said, we have registered apprenticeship programs well, as you can see up there, over 190 different program sponsors with 2,300 active participating employers. And this might be kind of hard to see, but this just kind of shows some of the growth and some of the new programs that we brought on through our Minnesota Apprenticeship Initiative grant that's actually sunsetting here at the end of the month. But over a 5-year period, you can see some of the growth area, especially in advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and transportation as well. So this is really a model that can be implemented and customized for your workplace in whatever industry you're in. Currently, we do have one grant that we do have available. It's our Minnesota Registered Apprenticeship Expansion Initiative grant. That was $1.3 million that we received through the United States Department of Labor, and that will run through next year. The MinRay grant, as we refer to it, is really designed to help increase the number of apprentices in registered apprenticeship programs, support and encourage diversity in registered apprenticeship, and integrate registered apprenticeship into state workforce development strategies. Part of that is we've been working with the state workforce investment boards throughout the state to help educate and those boards about what registered apprenticeship is, and to disseminate that information out to the employers in those regions that the workforce investment boards work with. Some of our metrics and goals for this grant is to register an additional 800 new apprentices and to help create 23 new registered apprenticeship programs throughout the state. If folks are interested in learning more information about the specifics of that grant, we have the contact information for Charles McIntosh, who's one of my coworkers who's overseeing that grant, available. There's additional information available about it on our website as well. Unfortunately, I am not the expert on all the ins and outs of this grant. So any questions about it, I would have to refer to my coworker, Charles, to answer. And I have that information available at the end of this slide that you can have, or you can reach out directly to myself and I can help make that connection for those that are interested in learning more about these opportunities. So really, I don't know how many questions we have. That's kind of the registered apprenticeship in a nutshell. My contact information is up there. So if you have any general questions about registered apprenticeship, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can reach me by phone. Email is going to be the easiest. And this information will be sent out on the resources that Shannon will send out to everybody. If you're interested in developing a program, we have 2 dedicated staff members, LaRon Latimer and Leslie Philman, that are kind of our go-to folks for developing registered apprenticeship programs outside of the building and construction trades in the electrical utility industry. So if you're in manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, the automotive sector, these are the folks that are going to be the best resources to help develop your programs. And then for information about the MinRay grant, Charles McIntosh would be your contact person for any questions that you have regarding the MinRay grant. So I thank everybody for joining today and sitting through this. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those at this point in time.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat box so far. Okay, thank you for joining us today for the second session in this 4-part series. I hope you can attend next week's meeting, How to Effectively Use State Resources for Recruitment. Career Force Help Desk and Employer Services Manager, Lena Balk, will teach you how to access and use state resources. Also, please don't hesitate to reach out to our Veterans Employment Program and get connected to your local Veterans Employment Representative for your hiring needs. Thank you, everybody.